At the barbecue for my dad's retirement, I handed him a $12,000 Rolex. He smirked, trying to prove something. "You're still my disappointment." I smiled, took the box and walked out. Mom screamed, "Don't you dare." This morning my phone blew up with missed calls. Then they realized what else I'd taken back. I don't know what I thought would happen. Maybe deep down I expected tears. A hug. Maybe even a rare thank you. But instead my father smirked like I just handed him a paperweight from Walmart instead of a $12,000 Rolex. He flipped the lid open like he already knew what was inside, stared at it for half a second and said, "Trying to prove something? You're still my disappointment." My mom let out this high-pitched laugh like he'd made a joke. Everyone else just went quiet. It was his retirement barbecue. I'd planned it for 2 months. Booked the catering, ordered all his favorites, even got one of those tacky custom cakes with a little fondant briefcase on it. I hadn't been back in their backyard since Christmas the year before when my dad called Dave, my husband, a leech. We left early that night too. I should have known. So I tried. Always try. I had the watch engraved with "For the time you gave us, Nancy." Not that he read it. He didn't even take the damn thing out of the box. That smirk stuck on his face like he was enjoying the awkward silence. Like I was a kid again showing him an art project he couldn't wait to toss in the trash. So I reached forward, took the box from his hand, turned around and walked. Behind me someone said, "Wait, is she serious?" Then came my mother's voice. "Don't you dare." She practically screamed it, but I didn't even flinch. I walked past the cousins who still call me uptight behind my back, past the folding table with the half-melted potato salad, past the stupid banner strung across the porch that said "Happy Retirement, Frank. 35 years of dedication." I walked out the side gate, got in my car and left. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel angry. Just done. I'd been saving for that Rolex since I got promoted at the firm. Not because he deserved it, but because I needed to believe that some kind of gesture, some proof that I wasn't the drama queen, or the overly sensitive daughter he always labeled me as, might finally get through to him. He never once came to my high school plays. Didn't show up to my college graduation. He left my wedding early because he didn't like the music. And even after all that, I still wanted him to be proud of me. Like an idiot. Dave didn't ask questions when I got home. He was on the porch, sanding the frame of that baby crib we'd been working on. He just looked at me, then the watch in my hand, then said, "Want coffee or whiskey?" I said both. He poured both. I told him everything. He just shook his head and said, "I knew you shouldn't have done it. But I also knew you had to." I fell asleep early that night, exhausted in a way that wasn't physical. At 6:12 a.m. my phone buzzed so hard it fell off the nightstand. 12 missed calls. 3 from Mom. 5 from Dad. 4 from Aunt Tricia, who never gets involved unless there's drama she can spin into Facebook content. Then came a call from Grandpa. He doesn't call unless it's serious. He said, "Nancy, what's going on? Your mom says you stole the watch and took the car. The one they use." It took me a second to realize what he meant. Then I remembered the spare car key. My mom had left her purse inside and I'd gone to grab my charger out of it earlier. The key was on the ring. I tossed it in my own purse and forgot. Her. Of course. The one I was still making payments on. They'd begged me for help when my dad's credit cards were maxed out and his old Toyota finally died. Said they just needed a co-signer. But I ended up paying for the whole damn thing because they couldn't make the payments this month. 10 months in a row. And now I had the key. And technically it was mine. Registered, insured and paid for, in my name. I stood there in the kitchen holding the key in one hand and the Rolex in the other. Something inside me shifted. Not anger. Not revenge. Just clarity. I'd spent years trying to earn love that was never mine to have. But I did earn this car. I earned that watch. I earned the right to stop pretending that any of this was normal. And if they wanted a war, they were about to find out I'd already won. By the next morning my phone was vibrating nonstop. Mom's name flashed across the screen again and again, followed by Dad's. I didn't answer either. When I finally checked my voicemail, the first message was Mom crying so loud I could barely make out the words. She kept saying I'd humiliated them in front of everyone, that I'd ruined Dad's big day, that people were talking. Then came Dad's voice. "Come, Pog. You think you can buy respect with a watch? You'll always be the same disappointment. I don't care how much money you waste." I deleted every message. Around lunchtime there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, there was Grandpa, my dad's father, standing on the porch, leaning on his cane, his truck parked crooked in the driveway. He rarely drove these days, so seeing him there made my stomach drop. He walked in without saying much. Dave offered him coffee and he nodded. We sat at the kitchen table, the Rolex box still sitting there between us like an open wound. "So," he said after a minute, "you finally had enough of him." I nodded. He looked at the box again, then at me. You know, I remember when your dad first started working at that company. He told me one day he'd buy himself a Rolex when he made it big. Never did. Always had excuses. You giving him one, that must have hit something deep. I said, I thought it would mean something. I thought it would make him proud for once. Grandpa shook his head. Your father's always been jealous of what he doesn't have. That's why he puts you down. He thinks hurting you makes him bigger. He finished his coffee and stood up. If they call again, don't answer. If they show up, don't let them in. And if it gets worse, call me. It got worse the next morning. Dave was still asleep when the doorbell started ringing, over and over. When he opened the door, my dad was standing there wearing sunglasses like he was here for business, not an argument. I'll make this quick, he said. Where's the watch? Dave didn't move. Not yours anymore. Dad's jaw tightened. That was a gift for me. She can't just take it back. She can when you insult her in front of 50 people, Dave said. Dad snorted. You don't know what it's like to deal with her. You'll find out eventually. Dave didn't flinch. You're not coming in. Leave. When he realized Dave wasn't bluffing, he muttered something under his breath, got in his truck and sped off. I watched from the window. It didn't feel satisfying. It just felt empty. For a few days things were quiet. Then came the text. Dave was sitting on the couch when his phone buzzed. He frowned, scrolled, then handed it to me. It was a series of screenshots. Old messages from guys I dated in college pulled from years back. And above them, one line from an unknown number. Just thought you should see what kind of girl you married. It didn't take a genius to know who sent it. I stared at the screen, then at Dave. He looked more hurt than angry. Why would he do this? He asked quietly. I took a breath. Because he can't stand the idea of me being happy. He thinks if he can't control me, he can destroy what I have. There was a long pause. Then I said, what does it matter how many guys I had? There weren't many when I chose you. He finally smiled just a little. That's all I needed to hear. But I wasn't done. Not this time. That night I called Grandpa again. Told him everything, the watch, the car, the rumors. He didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, there was a silence on the line. Then he said, Nancy, I've been thinking about my estate. Maybe it's time I put my money where my mouth is. I didn't fully understand what he meant until he added, I should have protected you a long time ago. I'll handle it. And when Grandpa said he'd handle something, he meant it. 2 days after I called Grandpa, he left me a voicemail. Calm, short, to the point. I've scheduled a meeting at the house. This Saturday. You, me, your parents. I'm saying what needs to be said. I didn't know what he meant exactly, but I had a feeling. I just didn't think he'd actually go through with it. Saturday afternoon, Dave and I pulled into Grandpa's long gravel driveway. I already saw Dad's truck and Mom's SUV out front. The moment we stepped out, I felt my stomach twist. I hadn't seen them since the day of the barbecue, but I knew exactly what was coming. A show. Inside, Grandpa's dining room had been cleared of its usual clutter. Just the table for chairs, a folder, and his lawyer, Mr. Carlson, sitting beside him with a stack of papers. Mom and Dad were on the couch. She had sunglasses on inside, which I assume was her way of saying she'd been crying, and Dad was leaned back with his arms crossed like he was waiting for a traffic ticket to be dismissed. No greetings. No fake smiles. Grandpa pointed to the chair across from him. Dave and I sat down. Grandpa looked at me first, then them. I've updated my estate. You're all here to hear it once. After that, there will be no discussion. Dad shifted in his seat. Mom adjusted her sunglasses. I'm leaving everything I have, my house, land, accounts, and assets, to Nancy. Not to Frank. Not to Denise. I've already signed the documents and they're notarized. Mom made a noise like a laugh caught in her throat. Dad sat up straighter. Wait, he said. You're cutting us out? Of everything? Grandpa nodded once. Yes. You're joking. Over what? Because she threw a tantrum with a watch. Grandpa leaned forward. This isn't about a watch. It's about a lifetime of how you've treated her. I watched it. I said nothing for too long. That's on me. But I'm not leaving what I built to someone who destroys everything around him. Mom finally spoke. But Frank is your son. And Nancy is your daughter, Grandpa shot back. When have either of you acted like it? I stayed silent. I didn't need to say anything. Grandpa had done it all for me. Dad stood up. This is ridiculous. She manipulated you. She always plays the victim. Grandpa didn't even flinch. The paperwork is final. If either of you try to contest it, you'll waste your money. It's locked. I brought you here so you could hear it from me, not a lawyer in a letter. Mom's hands were shaking now. We raised her. We sacrificed everything for her. I finally looked up. You mean like the car I paid off for you? The one you kept telling people was a gift, even though I've been making the payments every month without a single thank you. Dad turned to me. You're so ungrateful. That's when Dave stepped in. She's not ungrateful. She's exhausted. Mr. Carlson slid the folder across the table to Grandpa, who didn't even open it. You're done here, he said to them. I'd like you to leave my house. Neither of them moved at first, like they thought if they stayed still he'd take it back. Then Dad muttered something under his breath and stormed out. Mom followed, wiping her face, still acting like this was some soap opera. I watched them go without saying a word. We stayed a little longer just talking. Grandpa looked tired but steady. He told me he should have done it years ago. That it wasn't just about punishment. It was about making sure what he built ended up in the hands of someone who knew what things cost that money couldn't buy. That night, I went home and canceled the auto payment for their car. I didn't even hesitate. 3 days passed. Then came the knock. Not the doorbell. The kind of knock that says we're not leaving. When I opened the door, both of them were standing there. Dad looked wrecked. No suit, no smugness, just a broken stare. Mom looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. We need to talk, he said. But I wasn't sure I wanted to hear what they had to say. They showed up unannounced on a Thursday afternoon. I was home alone, standing in the kitchen still in my work clothes, when I saw their car pull up through the front window. Mom got out first. She looked thinner than usual, hair a little undone, like she'd stopped pretending things were fine. Dad followed behind her, slower, his shoulders hunched in a way I hadn't seen before. No sunglasses. No loud voice. Just quiet, grim focus, like he was walking into a courtroom. They rang the doorbell. Then knocked. I waited a full minute before opening it. Dad didn't say anything right away. He just looked at me with this hollow stare, like he'd run out of fight but still hadn't figured out how to surrender. We need to talk, he said. Dave came down the hallway at that moment, stood behind me without a word. I didn't move to let them in. Out here's fine, I said. Mom stepped forward. Honey, please. Just a few minutes. I raised an eyebrow. Now you want to talk? She winced. We didn't come to argue. We're sorry. For how things went. For what we said. Dad nodded slow. I wasn't fair to you. I wasn't fair to either of you. It was the first time he'd ever included Dave in one of his statements. That caught my attention. But I said nothing. Then Dad said something I wasn't prepared for. I didn't know how to deal with the fact that you didn't need us anymore. It made me feel useless. Like you passed us by. He glanced at Dave for a second. And when you gave me that watch, I knew I hadn't earned it. And that scared me. It was strange hearing him speak like that, without defensiveness, without spin. I could almost believe him. But something still didn't sit right. You didn't just insult me, I said. You came to my house and demanded it back. Then you tried to sabotage my marriage. I regret that, he said. Mom looked at me, eyes wide. We lost control. We thought we could still fix it. But then your grandfather. She trailed off. I finished her sentence. Told the truth. Dad stepped in. Nancy, we're losing everything. The house, the land. He's handing it all to you. Do you understand what that means for us? I do, I said. Then talk to him, Mom pleaded. Just ask him to reconsider. Let him leave something to us. You don't have to give it all up. Just share it. You don't even have to tell him it was your idea. And why would I do that? Dad's eyes turned cold. Because you're still our daughter. No, I said. I'm the daughter you've ignored, belittled, and used until it stopped working. Mom's voice broke. Don't say that. Please. You don't know what it's been like for us since he made that announcement. The bank called. If we lose the house, we have nowhere to go. Then maybe you shouldn't have burned every bridge, Dave said from behind me. Dad stiffened. We raised her. I laughed. You fed me and kept the lights on. That's not the same thing. I started to close the door, but Mom grabbed the edge of it. Wait. Ryan's coming home next week. I stopped. What? Your brother, she said. He called Grandpa. He said he wants to meet. He's going to talk to him. Of course he is, I muttered. What did you promise him? Neither of them answered. Dad cleared his throat. He's not going to let you take everything. I nodded slowly. So this wasn't an apology. This was a warning. He looked me in the eyes. This isn't over. No, I said, it's just getting started. I closed the door, locked it, walked away without looking back. That night I sat in the living room with Dave and told him everything. The visit. The fake apologies. Ryan. And then I said the words I'd been holding back for years. They've never been my family. Not really. But I still thought they could change. Dave looked at me. What are you going to do? I didn't answer at first. Then I smiled. I'm going to finish what they started. For days after they showed up at my door pretending to be sorry, Ryan landed in town. I didn't need to be told, I just knew. The timing was too perfect. I got confirmation the next morning when Grandpa called. Guess who showed up at my door this morning in a button-down shirt and fake humility? I didn't even have to answer. He said he was here for peace, that he wanted to mediate, and then he handed me a list. I sat down. What kind of list? Percentages. Of the estate. What he thought was fair to him and your parents. Told me it wasn't about money, just balance. Said I was emotional and needed help thinking rationally. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Ryan thinks he's a financial therapist now? Grandpa didn't laugh. No. He thinks I'm too old to notice what they're trying to do. That's when I stopped smiling. They sent him in, I said. They thought you'd cave if it came from someone who hadn't already blown it. I know, Grandpa said. Which is why I told him to get out. Then there was a long pause. I could feel it coming. What I didn't tell him, Grandpa continued, is that I've decided to cut them off completely. No more safety nets. No more coverage. I'm calling their bank tomorrow to remove the lien I've been guaranteeing on the house. They'll get a notice before the end of the week. My heart was pounding. You're sure? I've watched your father waste every chance he's been given. I watched your mother excuse it. And I've watched you claw your way out of the mess they made. You earned this, Nancy. They didn't. That's when I asked him for one final thing. I don't want just the estate. I want the silence. No contact. No loopholes. No more chances. He agreed. The next day he called a second meeting at his house. Just them and Ryan. I wasn't invited this time, he wanted to do it without me. Alone. They were told clearly and legally that they were being removed not only from the will, but from all financial support going forward. Property taxes, mortgage assistance, healthcare payments, all of it gone. When it was over, Grandpa called me and said they'd sat in silence the entire time. Not a single word. Not even Ryan. He ended the call with just one line, "It's done." I expected them to show up at my door again, and I was right. 3 days later they came. This time no smugness, no posture. Just two desperate people standing on my porch looking like they hadn't slept in days. "We're sorry," Mom said. "We were wrong. You were right." Dad actually said the words I'd never thought I'd hear. "I've been cruel. I know that now. I took everything you gave and gave you nothing back." There was no anger in his voice. Just defeat. "You need to talk to Grandpa," Mom said. "He listens to you. We won't survive this. We'll lose the house. Our insurance. Everything." I opened the door wider, but not to invite them in. Just to make sure they heard me clearly. I begged for years. For respect. For kindness. For something real. And you gave me nothing. "We were scared," Mom said quietly. "We thought if we admitted we failed we'd lose you." "You lost me anyway," I said. "But not because you failed. Because you never stopped pretending you didn't." Dad looked broken. I mean really broken. And I didn't feel anything. I told them to leave. I told them we were done. Not for now, forever. "You're not my parents," I said. "Not anymore." And I shut the door. From the window I watched them walk to the car. Their car. The one I had been paying off for over a year. The one they'd bragged about as if it had fallen from the sky. That night I logged into the account again just to check. Final notice. The loan was past due by almost 2 months now. One more and the bank would come for it. I closed the laptop and sat back. It was strange, the silence. Not peaceful. Not heavy. Just honest. The silence lasted 5 days. 5 whole days without a phone call, a knock, a text, or some guilt-laced voicemail. It was almost more unsettling than the chaos had been. On the 6th day the dealership called. The woman on the other end was polite, almost apologetic, like she was used to these kinds of calls ending in screaming. She told me the car was officially repossessed. They'd picked it up that morning from an address on the edge of town. My parents didn't even call me when it happened. She asked if I wanted to settle the remaining balance or have the bank take it from here. I told her I was done. That car had nothing to do with me anymore. When I hung up I just sat there. I thought I'd feel relief. Maybe a little satisfaction. But it wasn't that. It was just quiet. Like standing in a room after everyone's left. That night I opened a folder I hadn't looked at in over a year. The one with every receipt, every payment statement, every email from when I agreed to co-sign that loan. I put them through the shredder one by one until the tray filled up. Then I emptied it and shredded the rest. I wasn't keeping records anymore. I wasn't preparing for another round. I was done. Sunday came with a phone call from Grandpa. He didn't sound like himself. "They showed up again," he said. I didn't even need to ask who. He told me they rang the bell 3 times before he opened the door. Mom looked like she'd been crying for hours. Dad barely spoke. Ryan didn't come this time. I guess even he realized there was nothing left to salvage. Mom said she was sick, that they needed help with medical bills, that she was scared. She didn't say what was wrong, just that it was serious. Grandpa asked for paperwork. She didn't have any. Then Dad tried a new tactic. He said he'd started therapy. Said he was ready to break the cycle. Said he wanted to make things right. But even Grandpa, who had given them the benefit of the doubt more times than I could count, didn't believe them. I told them, he said, that you're not the one who broke this family. They are. And I told them I wouldn't lift a finger until they owned that completely without excuses. And then he said something that stuck with me. You didn't just survive what they did, Nancy. You built a life anyway. You built it while they tried to tear you down. That's why you're the one I chose. I didn't say much after that. Just listened to the wind through the phone as he sat on his porch, probably watching the same trees he'd planted when I was a kid. That night I sat outside with Dave. We didn't speak about the call. We didn't need to. He handed me a beer and we watched the sky dim. And for once I didn't feel like I was waiting for something bad to happen. I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because this was the end. No more pretending they'd change. No more hoping they'd wake up one day and be the kind of parents I always needed. They weren't those people. Maybe they never had been. And I finally accepted that. They lost the house 2 months later. It popped up in a real estate listing that I stumbled across by accident. Same blue shutters. Same porch swing. I didn't feel a thing. I never heard from Ryan again. I assume he went back to Texas or wherever he goes when he's broken out of ideas. Last I checked, and I don't anymore, he changed his number. As for my parents, I don't know where they live now. I never looked them up. Never asked Grandpa. I told him I didn't want updates unless it involved legal documents. And he respected that. People sometimes ask me, the ones who only know the polished surface of things, if I miss them, if I regret cutting them off, if I ever think about reconciliation. And I do think about them, but not with longing, not with sadness. I think about them like you think about an old scar. Something that happened that shaped you but doesn't define you anymore. They spent years trying to convince me I was the problem. And for a long time I believed them. But the truth is they hated me not because I failed, but because I didn't. Because I became someone they couldn't control. And when I finally gave that watch back to myself, and everything it stood for, I stopped being their disappointment. I became their consequence. It's been 3 months. I haven't heard a single word from them. No surprise visits. No mysterious voicemails. Nothing from Ryan. Nothing from anyone. Grandpa says they're still local, staying with some distant cousin nobody in the family really talks to. Apparently they're trying to get back on their feet. Whatever that means. I did get one message though. Not from them, from someone who used to know them. An old neighbor of theirs messaged me on Facebook. Said she saw my mom working the register at a pharmacy out near the edge of town. Said she looked tired. Worn down. I thanked her for letting me know and left it at that. I didn't feel sorry. Not angry either. Just disconnected. It's strange when the people who once ran your life become background noise. Dave and I are planning a trip soon. Somewhere quiet. Just the two of us. No family drama. No unanswered calls. No guilt. I still have the Rolex. Not to wear. I don't even like watches. But I keep it in the drawer as a reminder. Of the day everything changed. And the moment I finally stopped trying to earn love that should have never had a price.